Bannon's Nebula is a stellar nursery. Literally everything in the world of xenoanthropology is new and exciting, and Una typically doesn't base her decision making off of feelings and smells. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. I almost got through that one. Today, we're doing a review of Star Trek Strange New World, Season 2, Episode 6, Lost in Translation, written by Onitra Johnson and David Reed, directed by Dan Liu. We are extremely fortunate to have the director of the episode, Mr. Dan Liu, as our special guest. Thank you so much. This is going to be awesome.
Thanks, guys. Happy to be back.
So
great to have you back, man.
And by the way, everybody at home, special thanks to our good friend Anna Post for sponsoring this entire season of Strange New Worlds critiques and reviews. Thank you very much, Anna, and congratulations on the new cadet. All right. So, Dan, you said happy to be back because you were here for, what was it, episode 4 of season 1, Memento Mori, which was kind of a high stress thriller kind of episode, if I remember correctly. And when I'm watching this,
Picard, actually.
I
think I was here for Picard.
Oh, is that right?
That's yeah.
Okay, but you did direct.
Yeah. I did. Right.
You did direct Memento Mori. And when I was watching this, you're right. I'd forgotten about that. When I was watching this, I was thinking, do they just know you as kind of like the thriller guy? Because this had that intense. Do they say this is a Dan episode?
Well, what's great is our producing director, Chris Fisher. He kind of has he interviews people and he decides on who to pair up with what script. And because of our success in season 1, he asked me right away, is drama and thriller and action and that type of stuff still what you want to do, or are you wanting to branch out to comedy or anything? I'm like, nope, I do not want to do comedy. Keep me in anything epic, cool, dramatic, any character building, any character revelations, all of that I love. But no need for me to handle a comedy episode when I know another director is going to do it 10 times better.
Yeah, I got the feeling. I was like, oh, this is that zombie episode. As soon as I saw Hemmer in the elevator, I was like, oh, this is about to give me some nightmares. Makeup was the makeup was intense, and the story was great. Speaking of backstory, but one of the big questions I have for you watching this episode was a question that has always come to my mind when watching these episodes over the course of all of the series. And I've never actually articulated this to somebody who directed an episode. And that's why I want to ask you about lighting. And sometimes I see some episodes feel a little darker than other episodes, whether they're on a cave planet or something. And I'll turn my contrast, my brightness up to the max level. And I'm like, I guess this is how they want me to see it. And so my question to you is that, are those lighting choices done for my obvious thing is to hide certain things in the background, or are they done to intensify emotions, or also are they done in post-production or on the spot? Those are some of the questions I have about the lighting.
On this show, it is all definitely done towards tone, because every season has 2 DPs, and they're like the ones that can bring a director back where they're like, that's a little too crazy, but we can do this. But generally with Strange New Worlds, as a lot of people have said, every episode is almost like the director's own movie. So we're given a lot of leeway in terms of how far we want to take it dark or light, or just what lights we use on the set, what lights we add to the set. It's just really fun creatively because they kind of just let you loose there, and you consult with all your team and you can kind of tweak it to how you want. My one biggest no was oh, don't shy away from the horror aspects of the scripts. So, I have definitely some shots of full on. I remember because the shows doesn't do a lot of heavy blood, right? The past few seasons. So we were laying out the dead bodies in her hallucination in the hallway, And, we had our guys like kind of trying to paint blood a little bit. And I'm just like, and I looked
more blood.
Just go for it.
Just like let him pour a bucket down. And then, and then like once he got it in his head, then we like poured a bucket down and like, do you want more? I'm like, yeah, let's just like more over on that wall and let's just like splatter a couple there. Just like, I want to see drops like falling down the wall. And so, it's kind of like up to the director to set that kind of tone. And as long as they like it, they bring you back, I guess.
It did have it
Yeah.
did have that kind of dark, intense thriller tone. But sorry, what were you going to say, Sirach?
Yeah, well, for one, I noticed the blood that you're talking about in the hallway scene. I definitely, like, my eye saw a pool or a puddle, and I thought, that's a puddle of blood. It just registers for the audience. So that was one thing I noticed. The other thing I noticed was when a certain point when Uhura was kind of trailing behind footprints that kind of looked like footprints but didn't, and they were a trail, but I couldn't tell if it was a footprint, and it looked like it was made to look obscure, so they didn't know what it was.
Yeah, I mean, the fun part of this is like the reveal isn't that grand a reveal when you see it and say it out loud, but it's the journey to that makes all the thrills and scares and fun and like character building moments. So, from what the script had, we knew the ending was like this, and it's not like one of those type of endings where everyone's like, oh, clap your hands, yay, we did it, because following that is another like super nice epilogue scene. So, that wasn't the emphasis of like the revelation was not the emphasis. It was more like her journey during this time and communicating with this kind of alien sentience.
So, Dan, and quickly, want to make a correction for everybody at home, or just add to you when you mentioned that you directed Picard. You actually directed the 2 episodes of Picard, episodes 5 and 6 of season 3, because they do them in pairs, or they did them in pairs in Star Trek Picard, and those were freaking amazing. I believe you joined us for episode 5 out of those. But I wanted to ask you specifically back onto the subject of Strange New Worlds. This always fascinates me, and you probably hear this question all the time, but when you first saw this script, what was running through your head? Was there the excitement? Was there like, whoa, there's going to be a lot to this? I mean, or are you cerebral? You just start kind of calculating things, or how does that work?
I kind of, well, because I read all the scripts beforehand, so I see like the season's characters' journeys, and so I'm already excited by some of the characters' stories. And when I read this script, my first thought was like, oh, awesome, Uhura. And it's like not just like small Uhura, but it's actually like a big backstory of Uhura. And then it was like, oh, Kirk, but like Prime Kirk, no pressure, Prime Kirk. And so, but as I'm doing that, because of my background, I naturally kind of see it coalesce together in kind of like my goal in my head of what I want it to look like, what I want to shoot. So that's generally how when I read a script, is like certain things jump out at me, and then it forms into moving pictures. So
just want to point out that our good buddy John Orchiola of Screen Rant, big shout out to him. He said that he had Paul Wesley on. He was interviewing him, and Paul Wesley was calling it Primetime Kirk instead of Prime Kirk. And he was like, and Sirach, he was texting me today, and he was saying, or yesterday, and he was saying, I want to make Primetime Kirk a thing, just like Sirach last week made Spockword a thing, #Spockword. so hopefully that'll pick up, because I'm like, that does sound cool, Primetime Kirk. But you also had, Dan, the return of Hemmer. It's also a Hemmer episode.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
Right, Sirach? I think they mentioned that Bruce Horak was going to be back at some point. We don't know if it's going to be multiple episodes or if this is it. That was Bruce Horak the whole time, right? Even zombie.
Hemmer, right? We brought him back full on. I mean, he's such a lovely human being. I remember in Memento Mori, him and Uhura they developed a very like student mentor relationship even from the beginning of like their hallway walk and talk. So it was like quite nice, seeing her react to that, and as well as like a training scene, a flashback we made up, well, the writers made up, and we executed it, and just creating other hypotheses for the actors as we talk about their journey, with her mentor over the year. And just he's so lovely, but it's really funny because he's such a jokester on set that anytime he was in zombie makeup, the first thing he would do is like Thriller or something. And then
he did have the Thriller vibe to it. Yeah.
Totally. Give him a red jacket.
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, that was fun. So let me ask you, you talked about a little bit about the backstory, and there's huge backstory moments in this. I think the biggest one was the end of this episode with the introduction of Spock and Kirk through Uhura, and I was like, oh, that's how they met each other. Like it was like a big moment there, kind of setting precedent and
historic.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, was that the thing that interests you the most about doing this episode? Well, like, oh, I'm getting to establish this backstory that's going to be essentially part of the canon going forward. Was that one of the things that was intriguing for you?
Well, I think it's hard to be a part of these franchises and not be excited by these big moments. I mean, I'll say back on Picard as well, like Ro Laren, that was another thing.
Yeah.
Like, just like,
yeah.
I've been very lucky with the scripts I've gotten where, you get to really own and like see these moments and really show them off to people. And I know like it was very nerve-wracking. I'm just like, I hope people really buy these characters, their moments. And it was interesting because when I met Paul before we were shooting, we both really wanted primetime Kirk to
yes,
have kind of like leadership quality and this kind of like fearlessness that was in Kirk that he hasn't really shown as much in the alternate Kirks. So I know for me as a director, I'm just going to keep going on takes and talking to him until both of us feel great about something. I mean, this one speech he had with Uhura in her room, I remember we were like, I think we did like 6 takes of it, just variations, finding different ways of quality in the voice. And I knew specifically this part needed to be in French overs. So in this one shot, we just kept going at it until we were just like solid. That's so great. And then moving on. And because just for me as a director, I know the shot that you want it in. So, and it made all the trailers. So clearly it like worked. But
what were you looking for in those takes? What was the thing that you thought you wanted to bring out, or you wanted Kirk to, have this particular element to his character that you wanted shining in that scene? What was that thing that you wanted?
I wanted him to say it so that I would personally jump off a cliff hearing it, right? So you always want to be inspired by your leaders. And it's like, it's a heavy moment. He's trying to comfort Uhura, but at the same time, he's giving a message. And it's like, a very like captain of the Enterprise type message, even though he's this like little lowly lieutenant right now. But, you want to get that quality of leadership in the inflection of his voice. So we would do it until I felt something. And I'm just like, oh, okay, that's it.
And how much, speaking along those lines, how much of that was put into developing the chemistry between the two Kirks, between Sam and James? Like, what were did they naturally come on the set and have that kind of like big brother, little brother kind of dynamic to it?
They played together very well. I mean, like we rehearsed a few times and they got it right away. And then it was just about showing them off in the right 2 shots or the right overs to like really bridge that like feeling that they're working as a team, and as well as, antagonizing each other because they're quite fun that way.
There was another moment that sorry, Sarawak, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Dan, you made a good choice. I think there was a moment where he was waiting to hear something when he says, congratulations.
Yes.
And then he's looking at him like, those you got something to say. and I loved how long you took with that. Sometimes, director might cut that short and not let those moments linger when, we love them so much. So I love those choices right there.
I mean,
sorry, Brian.
I think all the actors came to play because we were even like, I think all of us were just egging them on, like, let's do another one. Maybe you can do it longer. And like, that's probably didn't come from me. Maybe it was like, I forgot, but I just remember this big like teamwork happening in that scene where they were just at the cafe and we were just like, rooting each other on. I remember specifically Benji, our DP, lit people so good in that cafe. And like the first shot I turned the camera on Uhura, I'm like, wow, Celia, you look amazing in the shot. She's like, oh, cool. And then she's like,
she looked beautiful in this episode. I have to say, I thought the same thing. I thought she was very well lit. And she would look gorgeous in this episode. Celia was amazing. Her facial expressions, the performance she gave. I mean, when she starts going on about her parents and stuff, I thought it was just amazing performance. I wrote down A+. And even when she comes on the bridge and starts giving out orders, and I think Pike is like, "Hey, that came from me, okay? So I'm the one." He had to like give a little disclaimer, like, you can't just go around ordering stuff around here, but I'll give you a pass. But Ryan, what were you going to say?
First of all, yeah, we'll definitely talk a bit more about Celia because wow, killing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to add to these moments. There are some really important moments, not just important to the story, but especially important to the characters, where the moment, the tone really needed to match. And that one was La'an and Kirk. There were two moments in that scene that I thought were important. The first one is a little lighter. Dan Liu, comedic director, by the way, everybody. When she says, "Oh, you are here to meet Uhura. I didn't know you were and we all know what's going on there. Everybody in the world knows what's going on there except for Kirk, basically, which makes it beautiful. But yes, that's a little light, that's a little funny, there's a little bit there. But then especially when he opens up and he tells her, about his dad being away and, am I the less important person or something like that? And she says something to the effect of, well, coming from one of the strangers that was saved by these people, I can assure you that it's worth it. And from a fan's point of view, watching this, or from a viewer, we're kind of rooting for this. We want them to make this connection, but we don't want, and we don't want it to be forced. We want it to happen organically. And these are the kinds of connections that the writers came up with to make it organic. But you, as the director, executed it in a way that it felt real. And I want to know, was that one of the things that took a lot of takes, or was there a lot put into that?
Well, I think Christina said this in interviews, so I don't mind saying it, but when her and Paul are together, they just have the giggles.
I had a feeling.
It's like one of those two things when friends come together and they just find everything about each other like silly or funny, or someone says something and it just becomes a thing. So my job is to give them enough room to get that out of their system, and then to get into a more serious mode, and then to, ask for pauses or like slow down parts so that we can get into the drama of it. And so for her and him, like the rehearsal felt like it was gonna go off the rails. But then you let them play in the space, and you like don't cut like in the middle of their giggles or anything. You just like let it play, and then their characters start coming out, and then sometimes even a quick reset will just get them back in the mode. So we did run a lot of takes, not gonna lie, but it was, a lot of it was really great. And once, somewhere in the amount of takes, I went up to Christina, I'm like, that was La'an, and it was brilliant. And then she just kept going, and then we didn't have to do a whole lot after that. And in terms of like direction, she just nailed it from then on.
She delivered one of my favorite lines in this episode. when Pike says, "You guys know each other," referring to her and uh, Kirk, and she's like, "Yeah, look, now's not a good time to explain, Captain." Like she just shut him down so quickly and so fast. And the great thing was, as the audience, we feel like we're privy to some inside joke, right? Some inside knowledge,
Totally.
where Pike is not aware of something that we are aware of, and that's another great little extra dimension to add to storytelling, in my opinion, because it leaves everybody feeling like they're in the know, and oh, he doesn't know, and I wish they would hook up, and there's a whole bunch of like secrets that we kind of know. But I actually wanted to go back to, I thought when you said about the character development, I thought you were going to talk about, Ryan, the scenes between Una and Pelia, because they
revealed so much of the backstory with them two at the end as well.
Yes, yeah. And I love those moments because we see how long they've known each other. We see the backstory there as far as being her teacher, and there's where that was the moments where I felt like that place you were filming in was with the big giant screen in the background, and that's why it looks so huge, because you were able to create that visual. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, that was one of our AR wall days.
Yes.
Sirach catches it every time, man. I thought you guys were just at the Bud Light plant in Van Nuys, like the 2009 Star Trek movie.
No, when I see it, I'm like, oh, it's got it, because it looks so huge. It's so massive when you see the backdrop. I'm like, there's only one thing that can create that effect, and I'm pretty sure it's that AR wall. So, but I wanted to ask you, Dan, because we talked a little bit about visual effects. The scene in which Kirk beams them out of the room just before it's about to explode, and Ramon gets thrown into space, and there's that swirling Ramon in space. I love that scene, and I wanted to ask you, when they're doing those kinds of special effects, how are those things already drawn out for you in the storyboard format, so that you know how it's going to eventually look in the final production?
What's amazing about this particular show, Strange New Worlds, is they empower the director to do it all. So that was, me and the storyboarder for the show, we storyboarded on my first couple of days of prep, so that, we had what the script said, and then we pitched it to the producers and the VFX team so that they could get a budget and approve or not, like, our ideas. And, I'm so thankful that season 1 went well, because they would always be like, well, all the VFX worked in your first season episode, so I'm sure this one will be fine.
Okay, so he gave you a green light to go forward.
Yeah.
So that was something you guys worked out to get. You wanted to see the slow kind of execution or death of this character, which was impactful for me.
Because you really wanted to feel this character and feel how Uhura felt wanting to save this character, because he's not even from the ship, right? He's a Farragut officer, and just the interactions that because she recognizes the hallucinations in him as for her. And actually, my favorite thing to shoot this whole episode was when she was like, she gets into the room and he's like getting kind of crazy and doing his thing, and she's trying to stop him. And so, that's where she like talks about her backstory and how like she can relate to him and how like, don't do this. And I remember we did Uhura first, because I felt, she was the most emotional about it. I was going to do her first. But then when we turned around onto his back and he would turn around a couple times as we were doing it, I have to say it was like one of those magical directorial moments for me, because I just went up to him and was like, for this one line, take 2 more seconds to respond. And I just stepped back and did it. And suddenly when he did that, Celia started crying. And she just suddenly unlocked some emotional connection between them from that one pause. And then after that take, because the camera wasn't on her, all of us in Village, we just looked at each other, and I'm just like, guys, we have to turn back around, right? And then everyone's like,
yep.
we have to make that time work. We're like, TV, you're scrounging for time. We're like, we don't know if we have time for everything. We're like, no, but we have to make that work. We have to turn back around. And
Wow.
yeah, it was super cool. Like the whole crew, I think we just all got chills watching it. I mean, I felt it's weird. I felt people getting chills around me, and that doesn't happen like collectively that often. So it was great to do, and we did it, turned it around, and then it was just about me streamlining the fight because I knew exactly what I wanted, and I'm just like, do this. Okay, we're just gonna blow him out of the thing here. We've rehearsed it. Like all the stunt people have had the lines to rehearse it the day before. We're just gonna knock it out and do it. And yeah, it was intense, but it was one of those like moments that you're just like, oh, this really works. Now you care for the character, just like, very shortly.
I've never heard of that, actually, Dan. I've never heard of that being done before.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've ever heard them moving on from a close-up, going to somebody else, and then their performance is so good on the other person's close-up that you have to turn it back on them. I've never heard that done before. Have you ever done that before, Dan? Like moved on and went back?
Sometimes, like on some of my other shows I have, because it's just one of those things where you recognize when you are playing with actors that sometimes they're just not fully in it as much as they could be, and you don't even realize it until it unlocks in them, and you have to capture that. Lucky for me, in our schedule and streaming world, we've been managed to capture that these days. So
that's gotta feel amazing as an actor to do something so cool that they're like, all right, we'll cut bits out of the fight scene. We got to get more of this. Whatever it takes, so that's gotta be a pretty amazing feeling. But we're so glad you made that choice, Dan, because clearly that was a standout moment in the episode. We only have you for another minute here, and we really appreciate your time. But before we go, can you just give us a little bit more about Celia? Because we've talked about her kind of peppered in this conversation, but we haven't talked specifically about her really carrying this episode, or certainly the A plot. Can you tell everybody a little bit about her as an actress?
I mean, she is such a giving actress. She came from, she's a Grammy-winning musical actress. So as a director, I just know she comes from theater. She is great with repetition. She is great with rehearsal. She is great with talking about all of that, even before we step foot on a set. So we can just have a meeting, talk about the goals. I remember because she was a little scared about horror. So then I told her to watch some really scary shit. When she's in it, we talked about her background and how she relates to the character and just what she brings out of it. And I just wanted to give her a safe space so that she can draw on it without feeling like it's manipulative, And I think she's so comfortable with herself and everyone else that she can just do that without thinking twice. And you see it on the screen.
Awesome. Wow. Yeah. Well, Dan, this has been so cool. We really appreciate you joining in the fun with us. We hope that you will be also working on season 3 of Strange New Worlds, whenever the heck that happens. But we will be here, and we hope you will be too. Dan, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us again. It's so much fun.
Thanks, guys. It's been a blast.
All right, everybody, stick around. We will be right back with a little bit more coverage of this awesome episode on The Seventh Rule. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello.
Man, we just had a little bit more conversation with Dan Liu. He told us all kinds of really cool stuff. Even during the break, we will relay that information. But before we do, here are the trivioids of the week. There are a lot of them. Bannon's Nebula is a stellar nursery. Captain Pike is fleet captain for this first mission. Ensign Uhura was cool. Ensign Uhura has cool glowing green earrings. Do you notice those?
Oh, yeah. I like those.
Yeah, that was freaking. I kept trying to figure out, is there like a little button back there? Commander Pelia said Hammer was one of her best students only because he is dead, but really he was just okay. Una typically doesn't base her decision making off of feelings and smells. James T. Kirk visits the Enterprise for the very first time. Literally everything in the world of xenoanthropology is new and exciting. James T. Kirk has been promoted to first officer of the USS Farragut. George Kirk Sr. was the youngest first officer ever before his son broke his record. Captain George Kirk Sr. gave Sam Kirk his first name. Ensign Uhura is not in the market for friends. Ensign Uhura's first memory is watching her dad play piano, which is very nice to picture. And Spock meets Kirk for the first time. I guess I should say James T. Kirk. Lots of stuff there.
Yeah.
Man. So let's share very quickly what Dan told us. He gave us a couple more tidbits because there's just so much to talk about with this episode. One was that
some really cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. One was the whiskey that Kirk was drinking was what's it called? Wee Bairns.
Not to be confused with a wee brain.
Or We Bear Bears. Dr. Mohamed Noor loves this cartoon called We Bear Bears. Not worth it though. And that is the whiskey that Scotty drank in the episode. What was it? I don't remember the episode already.
I will tell you the name of the episode shortly. It was
right now people are yelling it at their screen.
They're like, yeah, you don't know.
Yeah, but anyway, it was that episode.
By any other name.
Thank you. Yes. And also Miles O'Brien loved Wee Bairns as well. And apparently something I didn't know, Captain Lorca also liked Wee Bairns. So Dan Liu told us that they just needed the whiskey, any kind of whiskey, and it wasn't specified, but he said contacted by the art team. Jim Murray, the prop master, said Stu from graphics was like, hey, why don't we do a bottle of Wee Bairns? Because everything we just said. And Dan was like, that sounds freaking awesome. Let's do it. And Star Trek fans are like, that's the kind of attention detail we like. And Sirach, he was talking about in the shuttlecraft as well, right?
Yeah, he was talking about the shuttlecraft, the scene in which Uhura was kind of seeing her family crashed on that on Earth. I think it was Earth. It looked like. And then there was that, dirt kind of gravel that she was walking on in the shuttlecraft. I didn't see what he's referring to, but he said that in the background there was a contortionist who was, kind of putting their body in a very unusual and unnormal position to kind of look like the wreckage of a very bad shuttlecraft accident. I didn't see that particular person that he's talking about, but I know that it was there because Dan's saying so.
Yep. So everybody, if you don't see it in the first watch for it a second time when you check it out. During that scene, watch kind of in the background. There's somebody that's just contorted in an unnatural position because they actually got a contortionist to do that, make it a little bit more realistic and lifelike. Pretty awesome. More attention to detail. And lastly, last week, Melissa Navia, who plays Ortegas, tweeted out, Star Trek and my late partner, Brian Bannon, changed my life. Next week's Strange New Worlds episode honors him. He was a force of nature, larger than life, and too bright for this world. So a nebula seems fitting. Hashtag Bannon's Nebula. And that's what this was. At the very beginning, they said they're going to Bannon's Nebula, and it was a big, beautiful red nebula. And actually, we can show it right here. So that was such a sweet tweet from her and a sweet thing to do from the production team, the writers.
This is from the actor who plays Ortegas?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So they did an honor.
Nice tribute, yeah.
Tribute to her late loved one. Great. That's a great little nugget to know right there. A little extra drop in this episode, which was full of little things here and there.
You know what this episode felt like? struck, like looking back on it, I feel like we got more backstory than maybe any other episode. There was backstories, just like we got some of Una's backstory. We got some of Pelia's backstory. We got Uhura's backstory, as well as backstory of Uhura and Hemmer together. We got extra moments there. We got George Kirk and James T. Kirk, more of their backstory about how, how their sibling relationship is working out or not working out, and what was up with their dad, and that kind of life. We got more backstory from La'an and Captain Kirk, or sorry, James Kirk, talking about his father being away. Like, we learned so much more about these people, even Spock and Chapel.
Yeah, which I wanted to get into, the Spock and Chapel scenes, which I really enjoyed their chemistry. That whole your move conversation that they were having, where they were, playing this verbal chess as well as real chess. And I think he led off with the line. He says, he's talking about, I'm thinking that we should report this to Starfleet. And then he says, if there's anything to tell. And
that was a little confusing to me, because then I thought, I was like, wait a minute, is he saying, hey, if we just hump, then no big deal. But if we're in a relationship, we should say something about it. And I'm like, is Spock a player? He's like, it looked like, he's like, if you want a relationship, we're going to have to tell Starfleet. But if you just want to hump, that's okay. We don't have to.
It's a very clever chess move that they were doing, this verbal chess to see
it was.
how far he was committed into this thing. And she was like, she mentioned something about messy metaphors. I thought that was another great comeback. This thing's messy, like your metaphor. Mm-hmm. Great comeback. And then they go to this whole quantum cat discussion, which I thought maybe you could elaborate on.
Schrodinger's cat. I think, is that what they mentioned? Schrodinger's cat?
Great. Yeah.
So you're in luck, because I've heard Schrodinger's cat mentioned many times. The bad news is I don't remember what it is, but I've definitely heard it. It is a real thing. It has been discussed many times. I'll look it up real quick, but it was interesting.
Something about a cat. It seemed like it had more than one meaning the way they were being playful with it. So yeah, I really enjoyed that scene between the two of them. I think Jess Bush is just really great as an actor, just like full facials, intense eye looks, and the chemistry there between Jess and Ethan is pretty spectacular. I see fireworks when I see them together.
Okay, this is interesting. Okay, so I looked it up, and basically what we're talking about here is Schrodinger stated that if you place a cat and something that could kill the cat, like a radioactive atom, in a box and sealed it, you would not know if the cat was dead or alive until you opened the box. So that until the box was opened, the cat was, in a sense, both dead and alive. Okay, so this is actually a very apt metaphor. It's not that messy. It actually does work, because they're saying that they don't really know if the relationship was alive or dead, until they open that box, or, the opening the box is telling Starfleet. And she did mention something to the effect of, if we tell Starfleet, it might be dead.
Out of business. Yeah, right.
It might be dead. So we don't know, so that telling Starfleet is opening the box, which might tell us that it's okay and that it's alive, but it might also tell us that it's dead. So that's not that messy. That works. Very smart by the writers there.
Very smart. I thought they were talking about something totally different. So we'll just let that go.
We'll just move on from there, unless you want to share with the rest of us.
No, I did want to share the fact that for the first time in Star Trek, we had a do-rag.
Yep, I put that in my notes too.
Did you see it?
Yeah,
Did you see it? Yeah, I saw a do-rag. And I was like, wait a minute, we got a do-rag in Star Trek. It's a milestone. So shout out to the do-rag. I
I didn't
enjoyed
notice that. Uh, it was cool. I did put that in my notes too. I was, oh, but you know what? I don't think it is. I don't think it is. Let me pull something up.
Uh-oh. It's not the first time you meet.
Oh, I can't remember the episode name,
Okay.
but there it is. I know I'd find. Well, it's not. I don't know. You tell me, Sirach. Is this a do-rag or not? Here it is. Everybody knows this episode as the episode in which Voyager visits, 1997 or whatever.
No,
I don't know.
that's not a do-rag.
It's
That's
pretty.
a cat.
No, but look, it's tied in the back
Nah,
to
too
cover
thick,
his
though.
ears.
Oh no, that doesn't look like a traditional do-rag. They may have made that one. That's a futuristic looking one. So she had a straight do-rag that you can get at 7-Eleven, like a do-rag.
Like straight up out of Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, like a John Morant one. I thought it was cool.
Nice. Knowledge.
And I was good with it. So I thought, okay, Star Trek getting a little getting ethnic up in here. They got the do-rag in here. So
the
was
episode.
A good thing. Well,
the Voyager episode was Future's End. It was a two-parter. Took place like at Griffith Park, at Griffith Observatory, I should say, Santa Monica Pier, all that. Everybody remembers it well, with Janeway's pantsuit and Tuvok's not quite do-rag.
And I'm kind of unlike Una. I do everything through my feelings and smells. So she doesn't do feelings and smells. I'm like, well, how do you eat then?
Good point.
I mean, you walk through a food court. That's I'm being guided by my feelings and smells.
That's a good point. But some of us say, like, no, I'm being guided by what I can afford, what I should be eating. You got to walk past the what's the one that has those crazy cinnamon buns?
Oh yeah, Cinnabon.
Woof. You got to walk past that. You got to fight your feelings and smells on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been wanting more Una. That is the character, I think, out of everybody that I want expansion on, because, I've mentioned this before, but we were introduced to her with Majel Roddenberry playing her. So for decades now, we've wanted more. Number one, more Una Chin Riley. We want to know more about this character that a legend started, and so I was really happy when we got that backstory, not just backstory, but a little bit more about her personality. She's a little bit more by the book, it seems, in contrast to Pelia, who has crumbs on her desk or whatever it was, which was funny.
Crumbs on her uniform.
Yeah, it's interesting to have that kind of dichotomy. And Pelia says, you think you're the smartest person in every room, and that's also a very telling personality trait. So it was good to know more about Una for me, because I really want to be able to sink my teeth into that character more and more.
Yeah, the space hippie comment was funny as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there were good moments. Actually, this was a lot of development for Una, because sometimes she does feel a little stiff as a character and doesn't, get to loosen up. I felt that there was a moment in which I felt her loosening up. There was a teary eye kind of like close-up shot that she had, which was great. Just showed me the range and, kind of how emotional she is able to get. So I like that as well. And this guy playing young Kirk, right? James Kirk. One of my favorite. Yeah. He did a great job. And one of the things that he did in this episode was the delivery of, oh, you're friends of Sam. Oh, you're friends of Sam. Mm-hmm. He said that same line twice. And I love the way he flipped it on from one to the other. It was just great delivery as far as I was concerned.
Do you think he was trying to hit on Uhura? Or was he trying to hit on her? And the second she wasn't interested, he's like, hey, I wasn't trying. I was just trying to be.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
James T. Kirk would never hit on a lady that's drinking at a bar by herself. I am offended that you would even say such a thing.
Of course you're hitting on her. It was so obvious. I was like, come on, bro. Come on. You're hitting on her. And then as soon as she shuts you down, you're like, no, well, I was just being nice. I'm being a nice guy.
He's the kind of guy that asks her, it says, hey, you want to come to a party? And she says, oh, I have a boyfriend. Oh, he can come too. I just meant like we can, it's, never mind.
Yeah, that's, and then, but he did have that great follow-up when it was like, I told you I'm not hitting on you. Because, she swung on him in her delusion. So that was a great follow-up line as well. But just, little moments of Kirk being the Kirk we know. Because, there's flashes of him having actually compassion and being a good guy in this episode, which are contradictory to the kind of, player that we know him to be. He was actually concerned and not trying to hook up. So I'll give him credit for that. Whether he was trying to originally flirt with her, he eventually did become somebody who was not trying to get in her pants, but help her. So I give him credit for that flip in this perspective of him.
Yeah. And, the old Kirk definitely helped people and definitely had a soft spot. But we just always know him as that roguish cow. That's kind of like, it becomes a larger than life memory. But yeah, of course, he did some good things. And I actually thought back to Chris Pine's Kirk as well when I was watching this, because Chris Pine's, I felt like I saw some of both Captain Kirks in the current one. He's not doing, as we mentioned before, he's not doing an impression or a caricature. He's doing his own Kirk, but the writers are writing consistently with James T. Kirk. He's not necessarily humping every Orion he sees, but they've got the right mood and tone and character type. And I think it's cool. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, there was a moment, for example, when he was talking to La'an, and he says to her, hey, I haven't forgot about that drink you owe me still, or something to that effect. And it just reminded me, like, oh, he's still got that Kirk in him. Like, he hasn't forgot. It's still in his head, right? Because she called him from his memory as a security officer, being very diligent about keeping records, right? So he picks up the phone and says, what do you need? He doesn't remember the experience that they had together, right? She does. Right. So, but she offered to buy him drinks when they see each other. And the player, Kirk, filed that information in his head, right? And said, hey, I forgot about that drink. So you still, I'll take you up on that. So I think that's clever writing and good character.
I was putting in my notes here. I put in my notes very sophisticated writing. And the reason I was thinking it's so sophisticated is not because of these great little moments here and there. Those are amazing and wonderful, but also just the way that they're able to juggle 3 or 4 storylines, whereas before it was a very clear and simplistic A plot, B plot, or sometimes just an A plot that ran all the way through every once in a while. But this has 3 or 4 plots, but it's still in an episodic form. Now, these plots are kind of serialized, like the character arcs are serialized, but each episode, it can be put in a little box and episodic. Like people can say the episode where Hemmer comes back or the episode where Uhura's having hallucinations. That's just one episode. We know what that is. But if they say, for example, the episode where Spock and Chapel have a heart-to-heart or something, that can be a bunch of episodes because it's a serialized kind of situation. But anyway, I was just thinking it's very sophisticated writing, the way they're able to weave this in and out. And it feels natural. It works. It doesn't feel like they're cramming in too much. It doesn't feel like there's so many subplots and plots going on that we're getting lost in them. I think it's very good. It's very good writing, I think.
Yeah, it's a tapestry that they're doing. They brought in the storyline of Hammer, which is something they left us with a long time ago. So
so glad to see Bruce Horak back.
Yeah, they bring him back, and that's another kind of weave in the tapestry. They've done that several times with different characters, different emotions. The whole Nurse Chapel and Spock ongoing thing, the whole La'an and Kirk ongoing thing. Now it's starting to, so they're taking bits of episodes we've seen in the past and bringing them back in recall moments, and I think that's what's great about it. But I want to say critically of this episode, I did have a critique of it, and my critique is this, or my single critique. If Uhura is so badly damaged by this deuterium poisoning, mild deuterium poisoning, where she's having these hallucinations, I don't understand why she was able to walk around and just be participating in the manhunt for Lieutenant Ramon and all of this other stuff. I think that she would be at least under, if I was captain, she'd be under strict orders to be in the infirmary.
Yes.
Infirmary and medicated, like basically put asleep until we figure out how to deal with this.
I had a similar qualm, but it's more of a personal qualm, was when Kirk and Uhura kind of run into each other in the corridor when Uhura realizes what she's got to do, and she goes, "Forget about the stupid cookie for a second." I was like, "What the fuck?" Go easy. He's just being. You could be like, "Hang on, I'll eat it later." But she's like, "Bro, enough with the fucking cookie, dude. I've had it up to here with your cookie talk, bro."
As if he brought it up like 25 times.
Yeah, I know.
He was trying to be nice. He was like, "Yeah, I heard they're serving real cookies over here." And he brought it up once. He went and got the cookie.
Everybody loves snickerdoodles. Give me a break. Don't pretend like you don't.
She's like, "Enough with that stupid cookie." I was like, "Boy, that's harsh, man." Yeah. You don't even want a bite of it? I mean, it might be really good.
He's going like, "I'm going to let that slide because you got deuterium poisoning." But no cookie I think
that would have been a great line right there. Like, are you hallucinating again?
Yeah, it must be the deuterium. And she's like, "No,
seriously,
bro.
This is a cookie."
Well, we got to roll out in just a second here. That sun is creeping in here in LA, creeping in deep, the setting sun. Sirach, overall, did you like the episode? You loved it? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I did like the episode. There were some really good special effects. The whole refueling of the fuel cells as they were driving through the nebula. I kind of like the graphics of that. Kind of like it felt like the solar sailing episode, the Explorers episode.
That kind of my favorite Deep Space Nine episode. Explorers.
It felt a little bit like that, just to be out there and soaking up whatever deuterium they were doing. I like that visual. And I also like the character development. Yeah, it's it's not my favorite episodes, considering that I really liked the last episode before this one. The whole Spock turning human episode I thought was great. But
hilarious.
It does carry this season forward. It's been there's no moments when you're like, "Oh, I don't like this." So yeah, I like the episode. I like the show.
I enjoyed it too, man.
And I think it was fun.
I enjoyed it too because it gave me what I like, what I look for, which is sophisticated writing, good directing, good acting, good moments, good character moments, things that even if we don't necessarily remember the exact episode, because the character moments aren't necessarily episode specific all the time, but 20 years from now, when we look back at that episode, we think back at that episode when Chapler and Spock are playing chess. Might not know that is necessarily the deuterium episode because it wasn't really connected, but we will remember that moment and we'll remember that character arc that they're going through, that relationship arc. So it gave me the stuff that I look for in, character development and all that. I love that stuff because that's what we really attach ourselves to is characters.
Yeah.
It's the bottom line.
And to add to what you're saying there, Ryan, the moment that I also like, we didn't get a chance to talk about it too much, but I want to just throw it in there, was when Pike basically has faith in Uhura's visions and her assessment of the situation, so much so that he's willing to blow up this refinery without any kind of, going through the proper channels type of protocol. So I thought that was a big moment. He also said, "This is on me," so he took responsibility and said, "Look, I'm going to take the heat for this if there's been any blowback for it." So those are little things to me that show leadership on Pike's part. It shows trust and faith in his crew that, he's like, "Are you sure?" And she's willing to bet her life on it. So those kinds of things to me, that's what makes you're in the trenches with your fellow crewmates, and that they've got your back. And to me, that's what I felt when I watched this episode.
I wanted to see him blow up that thing, or her blow up the thing, and then afterwards she goes, "Oh man, I'm tripping. What I miss? What happened?" He's like, "What? We just blew it." She's like, "What are you doing? I'm on the D right now, the deuterium, man. What's going on? You got to wait till I come down."
You listen to me?
Yeah, I'll take that cookie now. He's like, "I need a cookie, bro. You're killing me." Anyway, well, that was really cool. Let's give a very special thanks to some of our pals. Their names are Homer Frizzell, Dr. Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arucan, Titus Mohler, Darlena Marie, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Tierney C. Dieckmann, Anna Post, Anil O. Polat, Joe Balsarotti. That is a cool beverage vessel that you can get over at the introvertedrepublic.com. That is made by Melissa Longo. Yes. Tierney C. Dieckmann, Anna Post, Anil O. Polat, Joe Balsarotti, Mike Gu, Dequeue, Neal Akasaka, Justine Norton-Kertson, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, My Live from Tokyo, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, Henry Unger, Allyson Leach-Heid, Julie Manisfee, Marsha Classic Schreier, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner and Jason Oken, the outrageous Oken. All right. Well, thank you all very much for joining us. It's been a great one. And thanks to Dan Liu, the legendary, the incredible. Everybody at home, we will see you next time. And until then, always remember the 7th rule.